lot of the people that are geared towards self-improvement, we tend to be high performers, right? So we tend to be optimizers. And so this, when I initially introduced it, I already know what your brain is going to do. It's going to be like, that makes me get less done. But let me explain. So there's something that I put in my calendar and I invite my clients to experiment with called sliding blocks. And so when I plan my week, I'm a fan of time blocking. It's worked really well for me. I know what I'm working on Mondays at 10 a.m. and Wednesdays at 4 p.m. I know my flow. And I intentionally schedule empty blocks of time into my day. An hour and a half, 2-hour blocks split up. And the reason I do that is because rarely do I have a day where something doesn't go as planned or something comes in that's unexpected. So let's say an email comes in and I need to submit a pitch for something and the deadline is that day, and that's going to take 20 minutes to half an hour out of my day. My kid gets sick, something like that, and I have to take time away, or I have an appointment that gets booked in the middle of my day unexpectedly after I've planned my week. Unexpected things come in. That's just the nature. So what these sliding blocks do is allow me to take the work that got bumped and slide it into those empty blocks of time. So we're going back to that concept of when I get to the end of the day, yes, I have done enough. I also accounted for time that was already going to be used that way, except my brain looks at it differently. I am now not behind. Do you see? Most people jam-pack their day or work off the to-do list. Something comes up and everything gets bumped and now they are quote unquote behind.
The Thomas Green podcast is owned and made possible by Ethical Marketing Service. If your business is struggling with Google or Facebook ads, maybe you're frustrated figuring it out or there's a performance issue, Ethical Marketing Service has worked on hundreds of accounts and we can help in this area. If you would like to find out if we can help, it's a free, no salesy consultation call and the link is in the description. Enjoy the episode. Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Tanessa Shears. Tanessa, welcome.
Hey, Thomas, how's it going?
Marvelous. What about yourself?
That's good. It's good. Day's been off to a great start so far.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Tanessa Shears. First off, I'm a mom of 3. I've got a mom of 2. They're 1 and a 3-year-old right now. So we are in the midst of like all of the busyness of mom of 2 little kids, but I also run my own business and I work as a health consultant and I work with entrepreneurs. And what I primarily focus on is helping them feel the energy, the clarity, and the focus they need. And this goes for any high performer, right? We want to be able to show up at our desks into our day feeling energized, feeling like we're not battling brain fog, feeling like we got up off a good sleep and we've got our health in check. But sometimes that gets really hard. Whether you run a business or you have a busy life or you have kids or whatever it is, sometimes it's just really hard to prioritize that. And so I use something fun called biohacking, which incorporates wearable technology, like I'm wearing a ring, spits out a lot of data, and I teach people how to make decisions on the data that they see to feel more energized and focused in their day.
It's a great introduction. Thank you. I also feel like we have kind of almost like a before and after going on here, because the whole, showing up energetic, that's you, perhaps not me. And you've got the brain fog in there as well, which maybe I suffer with a little bit. So yeah, in terms of the tech that you use, what kind of data that could you get in order to help with that problem?
Yeah, so there's lots of different wearable trackers that you can get, but I find that a lot of the ones that we're used to thinking of, the Fitbits, the Apple Watches, the Garmin Watch, all those things, they are perfect for what they're designed for, activity trackers. But when I was looking at, okay, what is really, I know the exercise is part of it, but when I'm looking at what really helps me feel restored, it comes down to like, there's a lot to do with stress. There's a lot to do with how you're sleeping and how you're recovering during the night. And so the one that my wearable tech of choice is an Aura ring. And it's a ring that I wear and it records, it specializes in recovery and sleep data. So things you're getting on there are not just your sleep duration, but like, how many minutes are you dreaming per night? Because that has a function in how you show up in the day. How many minutes are you in deep sleep? Because that affects it. Not only that, like what's your breathing rate right? Is your heart rate lowering during the night? How stressed out are you during the day? And are you able to recover after your workouts? Are you recovering from the busyness of your day? And so if we're able to properly put in protocols in place in order to recover from our day, we find we don't go day to day feeling so foggy and drained all the time. So I love to use that data as like a non-emotional way of telling if something is working or not. It's a return on investment. I want to do the habits that make me feel the best, not all the habits I should do because somebody on the internet was doing it and my friend was doing it. You know what I mean? It's really just a personalized way to look at health.
It's fascinating. So, in terms of your data, where you were before and what's that story like from your perspective?
Yeah. So I'm coming up on 10 years in business this February. So it's been a long time. We've gone through lots of evolution through here. But when I started, it was very much in, fitness. And then I brought in fitness and food. And this whole transformation of looking at data didn't actually happen until I was pregnant 4.5 years ago. And I was like, I'm going to get a Fitbit because I am going to take all the steps as a pregnant lady. And that's because of what I had in my head. But nobody was going to tell me that I would have such bad hip pain that I wouldn't be doing much walking. So, I'm flipping through this watch and I'm like, what else does it do? Oh, look at that. It records sleep. And I was one of those people that was like, I'm in bed by 11. I'm up by 6:37. That's 7.5, 8 hours of sleep. I'm golden. And I started learning. I was like, whoa, I didn't recognize how long I spent awake every night. And this has now been reinforced. I look at hundreds of Oura Ring data entrepreneurs over the years. The average person's awake between an hour and an hour and a half every night in that time that they think they're sleeping. Because our brains just don't go to sleep and wake up. We're up during the night, right? And so I started seeing this and I'm like, what else don't I know? And so I took to Instagram. I was like, I'm going to hack my sleep. I'm going to do the things that science says helps my brain. And I'm going to show you what the data does. And so I would be like, okay, I'm going to go outside first thing in the morning and get sunlight in my eyes. And then we're going to watch the data. And I would slowly start to see myself getting more high quality sleep, more deep sleep, more REM sleep. I'd sleep longer. I'd be awake less during the night. I'd fall asleep faster. And this was over a 3 to 4 month period of time where naturally then people start going like, okay, I can't get to sleep. I'm up at 3 a.m. Help me. And that's when it became about 4 years ago, wrapped into my health consulting practice.
Is that a Andrew Huberman reference by any chance? The
Oh, I
gains.
love a good Andrew Huberman podcast. Yeah, no, it's a blend. I've had a lot of influences over the year, both from the mindset side and the science side. Andrew Huberman has played a wonderful part in it because he makes so many science-based tools available. And what I love about him is his podcast is all about making them available for free. But what I find is that his podcasts are 3 hours long, which I love, but my clients are usually pretty busy, don't have time to listen to all that, think of the implication. And so that's where I've come in is like, okay, I'm going to take the science and make it applicable with protocols, like simple. How can you implement the 3 hour podcast? And so that I've blended that with Ben Greenfield. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
No, so he's in that similar space, but more on like the biohacking kind of like futuristic science tech side of it. And so blending them together has made kind of a real fun practice in which we get to, it's all about self-experimentation, right? It's like, what am I doing that directly affects me? And if it doesn't work, what am I going to do differently next time? And iterating on that so that over time it becomes something that sustainably fits in your life and it's enjoyable and you stick to it.
Well, it's great and also inspiring, I might add. My perception is that if you've gone through this process of having a great morning routine and you're tracking everything, um, relative to someone who isn't doing anything, right? It's a bit intimidating for someone to think, oh, I don't know if I'm ever going to quite get there. So the question is in relation to where would you encourage people to start?
I always like to look at sleep first for this reason. It's free. It doesn't involve anything to pay for, and you're doing it anyways. So why not make it better? So I always start there because there's so many things I don't think we really, sleep is one of those things I think when we think about getting healthy, we go to exercise and food. Like those feel like the obvious ones. But if you're getting broken up, fragmented sleep throughout the night, it is your hunger. You are much more hungry during the day, your cravings are out of control, and your blood sugar is unstable. All of those things lead to potentially overeating and brain fog. And if you're not getting enough sleep, how many times have you woken up and skipped your workout because you need to sleep in a little bit more, right? So we're starting to think about these things. And then when we think about your stress, if you are not getting adequate consolidated sleep, it is very hard to manage your emotions. We've all woken up after a funky sleep and felt irritated or snappy or had been in a foul mood for the day, especially when it accumulates after a couple of nights. So sleep is like, it's not another pillar of health. It's the foundation on which everything else is built. And so for this reason, you don't need tech. You don't need fancy biohacks. You just really need to look at the first thing that's going on. And I mean, I've worked with enough clients at this point to tell you that the first thing most people know when they come in is they're like, my sleep's a mess. And it's because I don't go to bed when I want to. It's because I am staying up till 11:30, till 12:30. I've had clients that have been up till 2 when we started, and they're just like, it's very hard to get that same restorative rest when you are feeding yourself like bright light, usually from the form of screens, all the way into that time when your brain should be spent restoring. So if you want to take out all the complications and the holy moly, that's a lot, like really start looking at your sleep and ask yourself like, okay, am I going to bed within a 30 to 60-minute window the majority of the time? That's a really simple place to start.
So in that instance, people would, well, the implication being that if you start to have more of a routine of when you go to sleep and then wake up, that's going to be more beneficial for your health.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about, I was just talking to someone in my Instagram DMs the other day, and she was like, "I want to get up. I want to get up at 5:30. I've got kids. I want to get my day started. That's when I can fit exercise routine in, but I'm having such a hard time getting up in the morning." And she said to me, like, "Can you tell me some things I can do in the morning to help me get up?" And my first question goes, why is it so hard to get up in the morning? Not what can we do in the morning to get you up? And it's really easy to usually unwind and find that we're not getting as much sleep as we think we are. Because there's this fascinating thing as humans, we're the only species that terminates sleep with an alarm clock. We purposely cut off the amount of sleep that our brains need to recover. It's when you think about it like that. And so I always like to start to think like, if you want to get up earlier, then it really starts looking at, okay, well, why are you struggling? And is it because the quality of sleep might not be there? That's easier to find with, of course, wearable trackers. But the obvious one is usually we're just not giving ourselves enough opportunity to get a good sleep.
So what does that look like for you now?
Like my routine?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I jokingly laugh that I'm in my grandma era. I call it now because I'm backwards on this, but I believe that having kids was the best thing that ever happened for my sleep because it invited in structure. Prior to kids, it was like, oh yeah, 11:30 or then I'll go to bed at 9. It kind of just depends on what TV show we're watching or if we were out with friends. But having a 1 and a 3-year-old, like they're asleep by 8. So that kind of puts a beautiful anchor point into my day most days. And so what this means is that that is something that repeatedly happens. And so from there, I decided that, okay, well, with young kids, like for me in my life, I didn't really enjoy the time. I found that the time I spent after they went to bed was time of consumption. Like I was consuming TV, consuming social media. It was a lot of consumption. Whereas I always notice the time I spend in the morning is always the opposite of that. It's creating, it's exploring, it's exercising, it's writing, it's reading. You know what I mean? And for me, liked that time better. So I was like, okay, kids are going to go to sleep. I'm in bed at 8:05. I read, I fall asleep at 9, and I'm up at 5. And that's not because I want to be part of the 5 a.m. club. It's just something that has really become a great lifestyle. So no, we're like in bed sleeping by 9 at the latest here.
I love the anchor. Um, I can hear perhaps some objections around if you sleep more, like it's time away from work. So,
Mm.
what do you think about that objection?
That's the number one objection I get, especially in the work I would do with like busy professionals and entrepreneurs. They're like, but I can't stop. I didn't get enough done. And there is a belief that if I take 2 extra hours to work, it'll get me ahead, right? But there's 2 angles I'm going to take this. Angle number 1 is I don't think what we're recognizing is it stealing from tomorrow's productivity. Because think about this. If your brain is showing up foggy at all, you're distracted easily, you are procrastinating, you are not feeling focused, you can't come up with ideas, so you're having to start and restart writing something over and over again. How much time are you wasting doing that? And so when I look at like, if I'm showing up to my day with a brain that is not well recovered, I'm wasting time all day. What takes me 8 hours could have taken me 6, but my brain worked slower because I didn't get the sleep. So you're really just kind of shuffling hours around and deteriorating your health at the same time. So that's why I'm such a huge fan of experimentation. Like, what if you went to sleep for a week and you noticed how you felt during the day? And then you decided if it was worth it. Because you don't have to keep it, but you just might find like, heck, I feel better. I work better. This is good. This is not the trade-off I thought it was. And so the second part of that conversation, then that's a tactical side, but then it comes down to what's going on in our head. And it's this: I didn't get enough done today. I could have done more. I don't feel like I'm ahead. I am behind. It's all this conversation of not enough done. And we often take it one of a couple ways. One way is going like, I didn't get enough done, so I'm not as valuable. And we start taking it to mean something about our ability to get work done or our value in our job or our ability to move our business forward or whatever it might be. And here's the question I like to ask. I like to really get in there and break it down. You're telling me I didn't get enough done, so I need to stay up later. Or I can't turn my brain off because I'm thinking about how much I didn't do. Okay, cool. Did you actually define how much enough was today? Because 9 out of 10 times I'll ask, and there will be this 400 item to-do list, and we're just, taking things off the top. And your brain is like, I didn't get enough done. Well, of course, because what was the expectation? How far down that list were you going to get? So I like to invite, okay, which one of these things do you actually intend to get done today? And then hold that as your standard. Then say, I got done what I planned or I didn't, because then you can be like, okay, why didn't I get done what I had planned? And then you're able to see, oh, I lost time here. It was because of this. But when you're just working off of a massive ongoing list, of course, you're never going to feel like you got enough done. So it's really hard to silence that conversation.
Yeah, I think you're highlighting something which is there is always more work to be done, right? When you're
Mhm.
thinking, if you've got your own business or you're a high achiever, there's always more can be done. Um,
Yeah.
I did have one follow up, which is about your 8 to 5. Now that you're getting enough sleep, quote unquote, do you wake up naturally, or is that alarm waking you up?
I haven't had an alarm clock in years. Because there's this really cool thing. It's called all of us have a clock running in our body. It's called your circadian rhythm. And this rhythm, its timing is determined by your genetics. We all have this fun gene called your PER3 gene, and the length of it determines whether you naturally get up earlier or you naturally get up later. That's why the whole like saying I want to be part of the 5 a.m. club, you have to also be genetically leaning towards it. It's kind of like I have brown hair. I could dye it black, but it's still growing in brown, right? The same way with if you are naturally designed to wake up at 7, you can wake up at 5 a.m., but it's your natural inclination. You're going to feel your best waking up later. And so I really like to find that. And how you can tell is if you are getting enough sleep and your body naturally wakes you up, because in the morning, there's a bunch of stuff that happens with your hormones that makes you more alert at the time you wake up. And if you are consistent with your sleep schedule, your hormones become consistent, meaning that pulse of a hormone that wakes me up in the morning. It's called cortisol. It's there. It's a good thing that it's there. That wakes me up at 5 a.m. And if I decide to sleep till 7, I'm going to sleep through that and I'm going to feel really groggy all day. If I get up at 3, I'm going to miss it altogether and I'm going to feel groggy as well. So by keeping that schedule consistent, my body anticipates I've had enough sleep, it's time to wake up. And it just really starts feeding into this process of being able to wake up clear. It's not just about getting enough sleep, it's about the consistency of the sleep you get.
And do you have any thoughts about how to realize what type of person you are in relation to amount of sleep and what time is favored?
Yeah. So as far as amount of sleep, there, and I'm just going to say this for all the people who are thinking, I can be fine on 6 hours of sleep. So there is a gene. It occurs in 200, I think it's 100, 200,000 people. It's like 0.004% of the population can get enough quality sleep on 6 hours of sleep per night. So it is very rare. So beyond that, though, I think there is flexibility. And what I always encourage my clients to do is like, okay, let's get you sleeping 7 to 7.5 hours per night. And then spend a week getting 15 minutes more. Do I feel better? Yes. Cool. Keep it. No. Go back. And you keep doing that, and you'll find that there's like a diminishing return. And for me, that happened at about 7 hours and 45 minutes. I find that if I sleep 8 hours, I don't feel any different. But if I sleep 7 hours, 15 minutes, I feel a big difference. So I think it's really being intuitive and being willing to consistently test things. And that's kind of the fun of it, right? You're not stuck with anything. You just get to stay with what works and what you like. Now, as far as to answer the timing question, so there's two resources. If you get an Aura ring after wearing it 3 months, it'll actually recommend to you based on your body temperature, your activity levels, your sleep cycles, where you are most likely, like on the clock, is it 9 to 5, is it 11 to 7, where you are most likely to get an optimized high quality sleep. But that's an option that involves money. There's a free option as well. There was a book I read a long time ago. It's called The Power of When by Dr. Michael Bruce. And the whole thing is about the field of chronobiology. So the study of how our bodies relate to time. And he has a free quiz on his website that I'm always sending people to. It's just Google The Power of When quiz. And you take it, it's like, I don't know, 30, 40 questions, and it'll put you into one of 4 what he calls chronotypes. So each chronotype goes with a different sleep schedule. So for example, if you come up a bear, which is 50 to 60% of the population, 11 is a good bedtime, 7 is a good wake up time. I happen to fall into the 10 to 15%. That is a lion that wake up at 5 a.m. But notice I said 10 to 15% of the population, which means if you feel guilt over not waking up at 5 and you want to wake up 5 and you're finding it really difficult, it may literally just be you're not designed. It doesn't mean you can't, but it gives you a little compassion in there if you've been beating yourself up about not being able to get up as early as you'd like.
Yeah, well, I think I might need that when I try this. So I appreciate that. Do you have any, let's say, examples that you're proud of where you've helped someone and the difference it's made in their lives?
Yeah. So I'll give you 3 quick ones. I had a client just a couple of weeks ago. She was not able to get up before 8 a.m., is now consistently getting up at 7 a.m. And I know that sounds like such a small shift, but when it takes the rush out of the beginning of your day, it sets the intention for your whole day. So she was able to just start the day, sense of calm, roll into work. And what that did, it allowed her to be a human being instead of a human doing all day. So you're starting your day from a place of like, I've got this, instead of like, wake up at your desk 20 seconds later, right? So that's part one. The second was I had a client, one of the things I really love is walking. Like, I think we really overplug like the hard 60-minute workouts a week. Like, I think if we just start walking more, we'd be off to a great start. So I had him start doing 10, 15-minute walks daily. And he actually started walking his kids all the way to the park in the back and noticing that he got to spend so much more time with his kids. So little things like that, right? And then I think the other one is I have a client and her sleep rhythm when we started was about 1:30 to 9:30. So she was really late and she was never able to see her kids off to school. And that was just because she couldn't wind down. So we've been working together about 4 months now, and she's going to bed at 11 and waking up at 8. And so she's able to just see her kids out the door now. And this has been something, it's like, it's not just about feeling better. It's like there are moments with your kids and your family and how you feel during the day that are repercussions of taking care of your health.
It is amazing that in the examples that you give and what we've discussed, how much of an impact it has, and yet typically it's not thought of.
Mhm. Yeah, we just see it as something that takes away from something you have to do. It's like we were told to go to bed when we were kids and we've held on to that like bedtime rebellion ever since. But I think it's really flipping the script and like bedtime is a ritual for me. Like I look forward to that. Are you kidding? I get to like get cozy. I get my book. I'm all excited about this. I know I'm going to feel good tomorrow. I have the energy I want. Like really understanding sleep is for you. It's not something that's being done to you, you know?
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. A lot of your, or at least some of your expertise is geared around maximizing productivity. I know that this is almost certainly going to help with that if you don't feel groggy. But have you got anything else to share in regards to productivity?
Yeah. So one of my favorite things I love to teach, and especially because a lot of the people that are geared towards self-improvement, we tend to be high performers, right? So we tend to be optimizers. And so this, when I initially introduce it, I already know what your brain is going to do. It's going to be like, that makes me get less done. But let me explain. So there's something that I put in my calendar and I invite my clients to experiment with called sliding blocks. And so when I plan my week, I'm a fan of time blocking. It's worked really well for me. I know what I'm working on Mondays at 10 a.m. and Wednesdays at 4 p.m. I know my flow. And I intentionally schedule empty blocks of time into my day. An hour and a half, 2-hour blocks split up. And the reason I do that is because rarely do I have a day where something doesn't go as planned or something comes in that's unexpected. So let's say an email comes in and I need to submit a pitch for something and the deadline is that day. And that's going to take 20 minutes to half an hour out of my day. My kid gets sick. something like that, and I have to take time away, or I have an appointment that gets booked in the middle of my day unexpectedly after I've planned my week. Unexpected things come in. That's just the nature. So what these sliding blocks do is allow me to take the work that got bumped and slide it into those empty blocks of time. So we're going back to that concept of when I get to the end of the day, yes, I have done enough. I also accounted for time that was already going to be used that way, except my brain looks at it differently. I am now not behind. Do you see? Most people jam pack their day or work off the to-do list. Something comes up and everything gets bumped, and now they are quote unquote behind. But I leave space for the things that are going to happen anyways. And here's the thing, if I plan those empty blocks and I do get through that day and nothing happens, you can take stuff off the next day and start working ahead. You can take an hour off for a longer lunch. You can get a workout in. You can start a project you've been thinking about. Like, there are so many things. Like, that block does not have to sit there unused. But what it does is it allows for your nervous system to be calmed down, to know that when stuff comes in that's unexpected, it's okay. I've got space for unexpected in my calendar. And it has helped me stay quite efficient and not get behind on things.
Yeah, it's a great concept. And it just immediately made me think of expenses in relation to business, because you got a line item for miscellaneous expenses, because everyone knows there's going to be expenses come that you don't expect, but no one does it with time except for you. So it's great. I love that. Love that concept.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like I put a buffer account aside for tax money. Like, I know it just goes into that buffer account because I'm going to need it one day, right? It's planning for what will happen anyways, right?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And thank you very much for sharing it. Is there anything that I should have asked you about today?
Oh, a good one might be, as far as productivity, I think one of the things that has helped me the most. Oh, I'm going to give you a simple hack that anybody can implement after listening to this that will help their productivity during the day. It's a good one. Okay. So if you're listening to this and you're a coffee drinker and you wake up and you grab your coffee first thing in the morning, like right on waking up, if you are then noticing that you are experiencing an energy crash, a decrease in focus later in the afternoon, here's something to experiment with. See if you can push your first cup of coffee during the day back 90 minutes to 2 hours after waking up. The reason for this is we have this chemical, this sleepy chemical in our brain that is being cleared out all night. And in the morning, it takes a little bit extra to clear it out. But when you take caffeine or a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, it prevents all that from getting cleared out. So when the caffeine wears off, your sleepy chemical's waiting for you in the afternoon. I have a lot of clients that'll be like, I get this afternoon energy crash. It's terrible. I can't focus. I can't do anything of value. I lose all that time. Moving back a cup of coffee an hour and a half to 2 hours after you wake up, I can't tell you how many clients that are just obsessed with this. I have loved it. Now, I'm not going to say it's easy, because there is that, like, what do I do in the morning that if I'm not having coffee? But I mean, I've been up 3.5 hours now and I'm on my first cup. And so what I did to start this, because it was challenging, is I just moved it back 30 minutes a week. And then you get there, you experience it. And if it's as great as I imagine it will be for you, you keep it. And if not, you go back to coffee in the morning.
Well, the coffee thing I think is helpful for parents who have young children, which you mentioned that you do. It's a slight segue, but have you got any parenting advice in relation to also juggling a business at the same time?
I think part of it is just routine. Like, and that, because I've worked with many, many clients before, that what they struggle with is just, a lot of people are struggling with kids up in the middle of the night. And it is making it very hard to have the energy they need during the day. And then they feel drained, and then they go to work all day, and then they come home, and then the kids, it's this cycle that keeps repeating, right? But we really invested our energy and our time into, I'll call it biohacking our kids very young. Like, I mean, keep in mind, this is what I do for fun. But I also was very cognizant of, like, okay, so we're looking at this routine. 7 o'clock, we had a shower. Then I brushed their teeth. Then we turned off all the bright lights and turned on only red lights. Then we had a sound machine. Then we read the story. And this order tends to get them to sleep through the night. And every time they'd start waking up again for a reason, it might just be a small season, but we'd also start looking at the routine and make little adjustments. And I think we really forget how much routine plays into making them sleep well. And when they sleep well, we sleep well, right? We work well off routines and so do they. So I really, as a parent, leaned hard into routines with naps, routines with food and stuff like that so that they know what's coming. Because emotions are a big thing for kids. They don't know how to manage them. They're not even like, they're like, I don't know what to do with all this frustration. So I'm just going to scream. But I'm like, if we can give them some predictability, then it makes their big emotions that they feel like there's room for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's great advice. And I'm also juggling. Got three little ones, so I get it. I get it. And for people who would like to hire you or connect with you, where do they go?
Yeah, so best place will be on my website, tanessashears.com. If you're just kind of wanting to poke around in biohacks and like what it is all is about, I've got a free playbook on there. It's called 12 Ways to Biohack Your Energy. And it's basically like short little ideas that you can take and implement that'll help you with your productivity and your energy. And the cool thing is if you take one of those hacks, you'll find that there's a podcast episode on my show, Becoming Limitless, that is linked. So if you want to really take it deeper in the fundamentals, and I am a huge fan, I don't gatekeep information. You're going to find everything you need to know to be successful at that habit. Now, where I come into play is helping you with here's what to do first, second, third. Don't do that. That's a waste of your time. Here's how to implement it and coaching and the accountability. So for that, like I said, there's information on my website, or you can reach out in a DM on Instagram. I'm super active on there. It's just at Tanessa Shears.
Well, I think you've been an amazing guest and a very good example of someone who has some energy to bring to the conversation. And
Thank
I am
you.
an example of the before. But I will be taking your advice and starting with a bit more of a pattern for sleep. So I appreciate your contribution.
Absolutely. I hope it's as great for you as I've built it up to be.
Well, thank you for being a great guest today.